Member for Kajiado North.
Yes, thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. I wish to give my contribution, Madam Speaker, and say that this session of paper, Madam Speaker, is very imperative to the growth of our country's economy and very, very considerate to the environment. Madam Speaker, you realize that we have serious universities like JKUAT that have, Madam Speaker, that are investing heavily on what they call automotive engineering. Madam Speaker, the world over, why there is a serious transformation from fuel cars to diesel cars is because of this issue of emissions, which we need to deal with. If we allow our country to keep importing cars, we regulate 7, 8 years, 7 years. Madam Speaker, is because there is a problem we are not addressing. The issue is not the number of years. What we should have is technology, to invest in technology such that we have less or non-fuel emission cars. Madam Speaker, you realize that this country has had attempts of making local cars, but there has been no push from the government and even from stakeholders to encourage individuals who might be interested in this particular sector. Madam Speaker, I have traveled with cars in this country using gases, and there is a company that installs gas to be used in cars. Most of these Uber are using gas. But Madam Speaker, there are no deliberate attempts to make sure that we are moving from the issue of cars that are with more emissions so that we are able to grow, Madam Speaker, one, as a country, to have cars that have less emissions. Number two, Madam Speaker, you realize this issue of regulations every year. Let us bring cars this type, Madam Speaker. Let us stop diesel, let us go to this type. That will not be the solution. I therefore wish to say that, Madam Speaker, as a country, we need to invest in the technology of this country. If the university education that we are treating our children to in universities is anything to be proud about, then we should encourage companies and individuals that have interest in this automotive sector to come up with cars. One, they can even, Madam Speaker, be zero rated. We can also reduce the taxes of people buying local cars, Madam Speaker. It will be cheaper for those who are buying. It will be safer. Madam Speaker, we must protect our ozone layer. Otherwise, in the near future, the sun will keep burning hot. And remember, we do not have another layer to protect apart from the ozone layer. Environment-friendly cars is the way to go by. Madam Speaker, we have a lot of geothermal power in Naivasha. There are prospects of even more power in Magadi, parts of Turkana. Once we begin to invest, and if we have our own electricity, electric cars, Madam Speaker, have worked in very many countries, very manageable. Madam Speaker, you know, even the hybrid system of a few cars that are here works, you combine. But ultimately, going forward, what you need is to have cars that are electric or, Madam Speaker, that can use gas. The power prospects in Naivasha, Madam Speaker, they are estimated that they can run this country with proper management. I wish to ask this House that as we approve this sessional paper, we need to look at this issue of this policy with a deeper perspective. Because if we're investing money in our universities, let us also get returns by making sure that, Madam Speaker, we have people who sit down to think of how Kenya can have local cars with less emission or no emissions, and it is possible. Madam Speaker, where our president currently is, South Korea, they are doing this. This is a country at independence was at the same level with Kenya. They have implemented plans that belonged to Kenya, but we did not implement. Madam Speaker, we need to have, going forward, proper laid down plans and people who can implement these plans. This government has a serious responsibility to make sure that at the end of these 5 years, we have reduced or we have increased the number of local prospects of people who can be able to produce local cars, Madam Speaker, with serious exemptions from government and help and facilitation from our national government. With those many remarks, Madam Speaker, I wish to support and say that going forward, we need this policy so that we are able to move our country forward, protecting our environment and caring that the future will be better than what it is today. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Julius Olesunku.